Okay, so here we are in the final stretch. Now we're going to start running through all of our one-player animations and completing the set and finalizing this guy. The thing I want to mention is that some people will actually animate all of their one-player animations on a single timeline. They'll say, okay, the first part is idle, then the next part is run, then the next part is sprint, and I don't do that. There's nothing wrong with that, but usually you end up with something like 300 frames as you do this. And you can see here that my increments in between my frames, this is frame 50, I can hit these other frames and I can always tick through. You get this kind of like huge mess of keyframes that are going on here. And I really don't like it. I prefer to make sure that each one of my animations is in its own scene, just because I find it cleaner and easier. And as long as I just save this as something else, I still have that idle pose here. Okay, I'm still good. So the next one I'm going to do is sprint. Okay, it's just one player arm sprint. And just with this guy highlighted, I'm just going to delete my middle frames. I'm going to go the same length, 30 frames. You can see there's no movement. Okay. And what I'm going to do is at frame 15, I want to be on auto key. There's a hotkey for that, is N as in Nancy. Okay. Really, I'm going to move it forward, and then I'm going to turn it. I want to be on local here, and I'm going to move it up. So it's really just going to kind of move up like that, and then at frame 7 I'm going to bring it down. At frame 22 I'm also going to bring it down, so you can see it kind of just goes like that. Now if I look in my camera view, okay, you see it just kind of turns up, turns down. It's very, very simple. You're free to do whatever you like. Now if we wanted to, seeing as how this gun is only in one arm, we could take this arm and have this come into play. But if we did that, we kind of need to reverse this a little bit, because as anybody knows, when you run or walk, when one arm goes forward, the other arm goes back, and vice versa. So this first frame is actually the gun back, then it goes forward. So really, in order for this to be accurate, in the first frame this would need to be forward, and then the last frame, well actually the first and last frames need to be the same, and then the last frame would be back, so they're kind of opposite of each other. Now let me you can see I have the same frame here as 15 and 30, so if I just lock that in and grab it and hold shift and bring it to the front, you see it goes back. So as one goes forward, the other one goes back. And in my camera view, you can see that come into play. The fingers aren't in a good position. However, what's going to happen is as soon as we sprint, you're going to see this hand instantaneously pop into view. Okay. So what we would have to do is really reverse what's going on here. This would actually have to go to the left and back. So what I would do is just move it and go down some. Okay, and then just bring it down a little bit, and down a little bit in the halfway points. And then reverse this guy, and a pretty quick and easy way to reverse this is just to take these two frames and drag it over, which replaces frame 0. Then I can copy that out to the end. So now I've reversed that. So if I look at my camera view, hand's not in view there, and it kind of goes forward like that. So our first frame is still going to see exactly what we see from idle. There's no hand here. Okay, and the gun's in the idle position, which might not be exactly correct. Now if you want your sprint to be wildly different, where he's swinging it across his views, this hand comes up that way, and then this hand comes up that way, your start and end positions, it's never at any point during that whole looping cycle going to be in this pose. The ideal thing to do is actually create an interim animation that is actually going from idle to the first frame of that, whatever you pose it in as the start point of your sprint. So you actually have a to sprint and from sprint animation, so that you can get a better blending. However, we're not going to do that. What is actually going on in the animations is really not as important as just really how to go about doing your animations. You can have him do anything you want, really. Now, I don't want to animate the fingers changing position. I just want to actually put them in position. Let me go ahead and freeze the arm so I don't accidentally keep grabbing them. Okay, now if he's doing this like an Olympic runner, they tend to have their hands kind of straight out, like they're doing a karate chop. Not so much like they're keeping a closed fist. It really depends on the runner. The fastest runner I've ever seen in real life had his hand in like a karate chop pose when he ran, and waved them like that. So I tend to like to show that. Show it like, oops, let me make sure I get my axis. Okay, so he runs like that. And then what we can do is we can add a little bit of, we need the up and down here. So we go back to auto key, down, and down, so it swings up, swings down. Now as the hand comes up, I'm just going to take his wrist and rotate it up. And then as the hand goes down, I'm actually going to rotate it down. But I've got to remember to copy that over to my loop point. Okay, well, let's just see how that looks in the camera view. Okay, so you can see the hand kind of swings up into view, and the opposite of this one, which doesn't look too bad at all, really. However, if I wanted to have it a little bit more in view and move it over, like I showed you earlier, if I just uncheck auto key and move it over a little bit, it's now doing that animation in the view. And you can see it's not very much. It's not as much as in reality, because if you did do it in as it was in reality, where the hand comes all the way back here, for most of the animation there's just going to be nothing in your view. So we want to keep everything in view, and like I said, you end up with unnatural movements in your first player view of what's going on off screen. However, you keep your gun in view, just seems more appropriate for the first person view. You kind of always want to expect to have your gun there. Okay, and you can see the hand comes in, and if I just hit play, okay, and really that's not too bad for a sprint. It's all down at the bottom of the screen. You imagine your face right here, be about what you'd expect to see. I don't really want to breach too much over here. I don't want to have that go like that, because if you look in your camera view, okay, well actually I would want to do that in my auto key. Then you'd expect your gun to kind of do that. It seems like one hand's waving all crazy, the other one's all subtle. Okay, so I don't want to do that. Just want to keep it about there, so it comes up. Okay. You could do a little finger movement if you wanted to. to help fix, you know, some of this stuff, have the thumb move up and the fingers trail a little bit. But really, for the most part, it's good enough. So again, I don't need any animation on the gun. It doesn't do anything. It just follows. So I just go to my selection set, get my character here, go to my Actor X, rename my sequence to Sprint, keep the same range here, it's no problem, digest, and hit OK. And it's already loaded, so I can just move this over and hit save. Okay, and it's done. So I'll just save my scene again, just in case. And now the next animation that we want to do is going to be, we'll say equip and unequip, which are going to be slightly easy. I may take it one step further. But I do, because I rearranged this, which was okay. Even this is no longer in the exact same position as the idle. However, it doesn't really matter because this is out of the camera view in its shift. So when you go to sprint, you're not going to see the, you know, if this was always, the hand was always in view, then I wouldn't have been able to do that. But because it's below the camera and it doesn't get seen, I can really, you know, start it anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's way down there. Okay, you don't exactly have to worry about it. What you got to worry about is what you can see. Okay, so now I'm gonna, but because I did that, and just to maintain that everything is always going to be the same, I'm going to just start my next one with the idle. Okay, and like I said again, over here is still out of the view, but it's back in the exact same position as the idle now. So the next one I'm going to do is equip and unequip. So I'm going to save this, and I just name it equip. Okay, and I said before I don't like to put I don't like to chain out the animations. However, sometimes it's easier to take care of a particular couple of animations at the same time in the same scene, because it's just easier. So equip and unequip are two that are really pretty much like that, and you kind of want to say, okay, well, how long do I want it to take to switch these guns? And I'm just going to get rid of all the keyframes except for the first keyframe. And when you say, okay, well, I want equip to take 1 second, and I want unequip to take 1 second. So if I maintain that timing on all my weapons, it's always going to take 2 seconds. 1, 2, and then you got your next gun out every single time. So if I want 2 seconds, I need 60 frames, because I need 30 frames for equip and 30 frames for unequip. And what I do, for just to keep it really basic, is you always want to make sure you start and end on the same frame here. So when I start, I'm actually in my idle pose, which is what I'm gonna, when I go to equip, is gonna come to. So what I do is I actually do unequip and then equip, and really it is just a matter of that. Okay, that's unequip and that's equip. I mean, it can be as simple as that, as long as the gun goes out of the view. I've seen hundreds of first-person shooter games where that's the equip. You know, the gun just drops out of view and it comes back into view. That's it. That's all you need. And if I play it at real time, you can see it comes down and it comes up and it goes down and comes up. Okay? If you ever want to not loop your animation, you can just uncheck it here by right-clicking on one of these guys and just uncheck loop. But for the most part, there's no need. You can always just scrub your timeline to see. Okay? Now let's say I want to take it a little bit further and start getting into a little bit more advanced mechanics on what's going on here, and I want him to bring it up. My unequip, no matter what I do, there's really no, like if I could maybe change it so that it's a little bit like that. Now if I do that, I want to make up for that with my forearm twist bone, which still works. Okay, and then make sure that goes back to the same. Okay, so he kind of brings it up like that. Now let's say I want unequipped to, I want him to cock the gun. So starting here, the gun is down. Need to actually edit my animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete everything at the end. So the animation, I just have an unequip, and then I've got nothing going on. Okay. If I'm going to have him cock the gun, I can't have him bring it up at frame 60 is when it finally is in position. I actually need it to come up earlier than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that to frame 40. So he brings it up real quick. Okay, but he's not going to bring it up in the exact same pose. Okay, he's going to bring it up a little bit sideways, which means I need to get a little bit more of my twist going on. And then once again, let me freeze this. Okay, and I can help that. So he brings it up from frame 30. Okay, he brings it down, but then when he brings it up, he kind of brings it up forward. And let me check that in the camera. You can't see it yet. So I'm going to switch back to perspective and move. I can't move the bone. Move that up, and I'm actually gonna show my camera view over here. And I need to hide that bone so it's not in the way. Now I can kind of get a better idea of where it's going to be showing up in my actual view. So he brings it up like that. And I want to rotate it a little bit away like that. So he brings it up. And at the same time, he brings his other hand over. Okay, just going to move it over. I'm going to say that my position's okay, so I don't need to look at my camera anymore. You say the gun's clearly visible here. Okay, so now, before I actually, let me redo that. I can do that. Take this guy, and I don't want that to happen from frame 0. I want it to happen from frame 30. So I can just copy frame 0 over to 30. You can see it stays there because it's the same position. Then he brings his hand up, and at the same time that he does that, he turns over his wrist, which is actually here. Okay, so I'm realizing, okay, now I need to make sure that I stamp these things at these other keyframes to be in the right position. So one of the things you may want to do sometimes is hit Control A. Just say, okay, I want to lock everything at 0 where it is. I want everything at 30 where it is. And now I can just start animating at frame 40. So now what I want to do okay, I'm actually getting some weirdness with my max again where my undos are skipping. If I rotate this, you can see that the whole hand goes with it because it's not. So I'm going to fix that. I don't want that rotated. And I'm going to rotate the hand from here. Okay. And as I move that, into position. If I want to, I can also animate this to dip in a little bit more over here. So you can actually animate this. Okay, let's swing that in a little bit so it looks more even. And whenever there's a slider that actually has a keyframe, because you can animate these things, when you're on the keyframe, if you look, the slider's clear. But if I go, it's got this red corner brackets on there. That indicates to you that there's a keyframe here. And if you look at the value, you can see that it's transpiring. It goes from 88 at frame 0, and then it transitions all the way to frame 40. Okay, so if I look at frame 30 to 0, now I actually have movement in that other hand. And the reason is because if you put a keyframe on something anywhere on your timeline that doesn't already have a keyframe at 0, it automatically puts a keyframe at 0 for you. So in order for you to To correct that, I need to have that bone selected and just drag that keyframe over. So now you can see my value 88 here has an actual keyframe at frame 30 because I can see this highlight in red. Okay, and now it can come up like that. If I actually really wanted to do that, okay, which is out of view, so it doesn't really matter. All it does is kind of determine the angle that the arm is going to be coming up from. It could be in my camera view, it could be coming from this way a little bit, but it tends to be a little bit easier if you keep things like a little bit more straight. And again, if I was getting too much twist here, I could actually alleviate some of that by actually bringing this up like that, you know, even though that's passing through his chest and everything. It's completely out of the camera view, but I can more easily get a better grip on the slide here. Okay, if I do that without having to twist this so much to get this hand nearly vertical like this. Okay, so like I said, don't worry about anything that happens beyond, past this point or past, the point here where the camera view is actually seeing. Okay, all that's going on anywhere back here, under here, and up here is completely completely unnoticed. Just use that space to set up your camera scene. Okay, so now if I look at my fingers, they too have a frame at 30 because I did go through and select everything and slap down a keyframe at frame 30. I can now kind of fix my hand position, get my thumb in a good view, get a thumb in a good position here. Again, I'm on angle snap. I don't really need that for animation. And then what I can do is I can actually curl this down a little bit so it looks like he's grabbing it. And sometimes you need to work a couple of these things back and forth. Okay. You see, I'm in the pose to grab the slide. Now if I move this around after this, let me hit Control A and just get everything. I say, okay, I like it, everything at frame 40. Okay, his hand comes up. Okay, comes up to grab it. Now I want to be able to pull the slide back. Alright, but I also want to be able to move the gun around, which means I need to attach his hand to the slide. Okay, so it's very simple. Just take this guy, go to Animation, Constraints, Link Constraint. I'm on frame 40. I'm just going to hit it over to the mag. And you can see now that everything messed up before that. Okay? So now I don't know where it originally was. And normally you can undo, but I'm broke on my undo. But what you need, and then you can see when I go back to frame 40, it's not in the right position at all. And part of the reason for that is because once you actually start animating, you need to actually link it to the world in the beginning. If you're going to tell it part way through to link to something else, you need it to link to the world in the beginning. And then you can see that it's actually broken because I didn't do that first, and I expected that to happen, and it was why I kind of went ahead and did it. So if you get that kind of behavior, just know that it has to do with the fact that you need to make sure that you're linked to world. Okay, and now the angle of my hand is actually a little weird. I've also actually, what it is I've lost that. See, if every time I didn't undo that, it undid the old operation. So my undos are broken, which means right now my workflow is broken. It's really hard for me to do anything when I can't go back and forth and check and then undo. And then I can't even, let me see if I can even redo. Just redo all the way forward. Let me look at my camera view again real quick. And the gun's still in a good position, but I do need to restart my max because this is going to be very, very hard for me. Right, I'm not so broken right now that I can't get this back to what it was. Just moving this around. I need to move it up and then over some, like that, so he grabs the back like that. Okay, and that's about what I was at. You can see my animation's okay. Okay, does the unequip, then he goes to grab it. Okay, so I'm going to save this right now. It's equipped. I'm going to pause the video, I'm going to close max, I'm going to reopen it, and then I'm going to have my undos back. Okay, so I'm back now, and you can see now I can move it and undo, so I still have my weird bug. And let's just say that that's alright for the slide. If I really wanted to, I could it's just a matter of I'm on my forearm twist. Oh, I'm gonna make sure I'm on local. Okay, twist that a little bit more. Okay, to make sure that that forefinger here doesn't pass through, and I could probably bring that up a little bit more like that. What's most important here is that the thumb be right. Okay. And I can kind of fix these other fingers to be in a more natural pose. If sometimes you want to act this out. If you ever look at any of the behind the scenes stuff going on at like Disney and Pixar and things, they'll film themselves doing something. They'll run videos of whatever animal they're animating or whatever, so they can have reference, and that's how they get everything really clean. So when I go to pull my slide, I'm roughly doing it about like this. Just kind of match that a little bit. Okay, so at frame 40 our pose is good. Okay, just brings it over. Let's say at frame 35 I want the thumb to be a little bit more like he's anticipating grabbing it. I could even take the wrist, just kind of bend that into place a little bit. So it's kind of like he takes his hand and goes towards it. Okay. So at frame 40 this needs a link constraint, which I believe is actually set. No. So let me add link. I got my link to world here. I add link there, just make sure nothing got broken beforehand. It's very important to just scrub back and forth, especially when you do some of these links. Okay, so at frame 40 it is linked on there. Add link is dangerous, just like optimize and attach and link tools. Okay, you just got to make sure that once you're done that you uncheck it. Otherwise you end up linking into all kinds of other stuff. The other thing we want to do is take our wrist. Now we want to do an orientation constraint to the slide as well. So we go up to Animation Constraints, Orientation Constraint, and we pick the weapon slide. You're going to see that the wrist twists out of position. That's because what we need to set here is keep initial offset. Now if we take a look, our orientation constraint is at 100. Okay. You can see that it's following the gun. You see that? It's following the orientation, the rotation of the gun. Where the gun tips down, so does the hand, because it's 100% here. So what we need to do is when we're working with orientation constraint, we need to actually only turn it on here. So we need 100 weight here, but at one frame before it, we need it at 0 weight. Okay, and the way to do that is to lock in here. How am I supposed to give this a keyframe? Well, if I just type in 100 and hit enter, even though auto key's on, it doesn't actually give me a keyframe. But what will is changing the value. So if I just change it up and then change it down, you can see that I now have a keyframe at frame 40, and it also gave me a keyframe at frame 0. So then what I do is I go to one frame back and I set it to 0, okay, and then I go all the way to 0, which set it at 100, and change that to 0, and now you can see there's no movement. The hand goes into the right position, and after frame 40 it's actually locked in. Okay, so then what we're going to do is now we can pull the slide. So I'm going to hit Control A and just give everything a keyframe at frame 40, and then everything a keyframe at frame 50. And what I can do is at frame 45, if I go local here, so I'm running down the axis, I can actually pull the slide back, and you can see that the hand follows with it. Okay, and I want to make sure I go back the right amount, which is to this lock here. Okay, and at the same time that I do that, I actually want to move the gun a little bit forward. Okay, so it goes like that. Okay, see it comes into his hand, and then it goes forward. So if I look at my camera view, you see he brings it up, cocks it, and then I'm ready to move everything back to where it was. So this is actually kind of the part where it can be a little tricky. Now what we have to do is we have to undo all those links, because if I just move the gun back at frame 60, if I move it, everything's still, that hand's still on there. You can see that. Now I want the hand to be off. So what I need to do is I need to take this IK goal, come here, and at frame 50 I need to relink back to the world. Okay, so now that's not going to follow the gun anymore, and then I need to get rid of the orientation constraint here. If I highlight it, you can see I'm still at frame 50, so I want it off at frame 50. At frame 49 I want it still on, so I'm going to go here to 49, just going to tap up and down, so I'm back to 100, and then at frame 50 I'm going to hit 0. And what you're going to notice, sometimes, didn't happen this time, see now I'm off of it, and now if I take this and I move it back to the original position, the hand didn't go with it. Okay, I just copied the first keyframe. So he cocks it and then he moves it back, and then really this object can just get moved back to where it was. Now the problem is if I copy this keyframe, you can see it wigged out. Okay, let me undo that. The reason is because it also copied the link constraint from world. It put another one at 60. Okay, and it's kind of freaking out. So what I tend to do is I change this to world view, and I'll just slap in a keyframe. I'm going to copy my positions from X, Control C, and then move it here, and then Control V. Okay, and I'm going to get my Y, Control C, and then paste my Y, Control V, then go to frame 0, get my Z, go to frame 60, and paste my Z. Okay, now you can see that my hand went back into the right spot. Okay, now my fingers and my wrist, you can just click the wrist and hit Control page down, and gets all those objects. They all have a frame here at 50, but I can confirm that. They all have a frame here at 0, but I can confirm that. And then I can just copy that here to frame 60. And now the hand's gone back to the same pose. However, I still have a little bit more to manage, because I need to put this guy back into the same position. Okay, just copy that guy back into the same position, and I need this guy back in the same position. Okay, so now if I tick back and forth through my loop point, I've reset everything. Okay, so now unequip, equip, pulls a slide. You can see that from 49 to 50, it actually did give me a little bit of a glitch. When I put the orientation constraint on, it shifted the hand over because it wanted to rotate this in relation to how much this was starting out to the new rotation, the offset, and it adds that to it. It's actually kind of stupid, but it does that. So what we need to do is we need to actually, at frame 50, we need to fix our rotation, and we can't do it on local because local is always 0, because local is actually how much is it offset from itself, and it's never offset from itself, right? So at frame 49 we're in a good pose. At frame 50 we're not. Okay, so what we want to do is maintain that same pose from 49 to 50. We can't do it in view though, because if everything else is moving around, it might not. We want it to stay in relation to the slide. So that's what we need to do. We need to change our axis reference, our reference coordinate system to our slide. And there's one here that's called pick, and I can just say, okay, pick the slide, and you can see I got weapon slide. And now the rotation here is actually how much is this offset from the rotation of this, the difference from this. And if you see that if I temporarily spin this and then I show my wrist, it's following the same thing. Okay, so what I can do now, the other thing is I'm going to put this back to 50 because this is where I need to fix it. Okay, I need to fix it, copy what's at 49 and bring that to 50. However, at frame 50, even though my orientation constraint is at 0, you see I still can't rotate the object. I've gotten rid of the orientation constraint, but I can't rotate the object, and that sucks. Okay, I'm at negative 2.094. I'm going to drag this all the way down. You can see I'm still at negative 2.94. It's not doing anything. So what we got to do is, once orientation constraint is zeroed out, we need to highlight this Euler XYZ and make sure that we say set active, because this is actually a rotational controller that really is basically this gizmo. Okay, we took control away from the gizmo and away from this Euler system, whoever that is, and we gave it to the orientation constraint. Even though we've told the orientation constraint, okay, you got 0 weight, we've taken control away from this, so we have to make sure that we give it back. And now at frame 50, I can move the arm, move the hand, no problem. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go make sure I'm in relation to the slide, and I can just copy my X, Y, and Z from frame 49 to 50. Okay, and now you can see there's no jump in the position of the arm, of the hand to the slide. It's exactly the same. Okay, and then now the hand can come off, and we're still back to the same start and end frame. Okay, so he brings it up, cocks it. Okay, you can see a little bit of a subtle finger movement as he brings it up. Fingers kind of anticipate, and so does the wrist. And we'll look at this in the camera view when we play it. Drops it down, brings it up, cocks it. Okay, brings it up and cocks it. It's pretty quick, which we don't want it to take forever. We still want the whole equip animation to just take 1 second. Okay, so if I hit here and just hit play, it's 1 second. Okay, and it's pretty good. It's not too shabby at all. I don't mind it. And but like I said, you can do anything you want. You can have him bring it up and then do the old Jesse James, have him flip it in his finger first if you wanted to. Okay, you could randomize your equip, so sometimes he brings it up and flips it over, sometimes he cocks it, sometimes he just brings it up, Now the key here though is that we have animated the gun. Okay, the gun has moved, which means we have to make sure that we export this for the gun. Okay, So the name of this file is arms equip. So if I just go save as here, you can see it's arms equip, okay? And it's arms equip. Alright, so I'm going to hit save and overwrite, yeah. And I can pretty much export this, the arms part of this, as is. So let me unhide all and unfreeze all and go again to get my selection set. Go to my ActorX, come here, and I'm going to name this 1p underscore unequip, and that happened from 0 to 30. Okay, I'm still in the right path. I still have the right animation file name. That's my .psa file. Okay, you don't put .psa there. One player arms Glock anims. Okay, arms. Okay, arms. Remember that. One player unequip 0 to 30. Okay. Digest my animation. Okay. And then I can just name this from right here to equip and do that from 30 to 60 and digest that animation. Hit OK. Go to Animation Manager, and if I hit load, and the reason that this is blank now is because I had to close Max and reopen it, okay? Just so you know that. If your Max never had an issue and you didn't close it and everything, this would still be loaded. But if it's not, just hit load, okay? Make sure you hit load each time, just as a practice, because if you don't, and I were to drag these in and then hit save, whatever was in there, these original three, actually gets saved out, because I've saved it with just these two in there, and my PSA file now is missing every other animation that I've ever exported. Okay, so load, hit that, okay? And you can see now that I've hit load, I've missed, I've broken it. Okay, so I'm just going to close that and I'm just going to digest again. Unequip and 0 to 30 and digest. Okay, Animation Manager. I can go there and I hit save. Yes. Okay, now if I bring it back up and I hit load, it'll say 5 sequences. Right? Idle, run, sprint, equip, unequip. Okay. Now that I've done that, I'm just going to hit save. And now what I want to do is I'm going to go save as, and I'm going to call this one player gun equip. And I'm going to put gun in caps so that it's something that stands out like a turd in a punch bowl. I don't want to miss that, okay? I want to make sure that this scene is never confused or anything like that, and that I don't accidentally overwrite my arms with my gun scene, because then I've just lost my whole animation. So then what you do, really, is you can just pick the arms now, which gives you 43 objects, and just hit delete. Okay, then I can get rid of these IK controllers and just delete them. I really just need the gun. Now if I look, you can see that the gun's not moving, but the slide is in relation. Okay, so all I got to do without auto key on is make sure that I'm in view here and just move this to 0, 0, 0. Okay, and then my rotation, I should be on view, is also 0, 0, 0. So it's back in that original position that I had, and really it just moves the slide in timing to that equip animation. So now what I can do is I need to change my animation file name, and I'm going to call this gun. Okay, and I'm going to call it one player equip, and remember that that equip part is actually from 30 to 60. It's the last half of this time slider. And then I digest animation. Okay, Animation Manager. It's telling me it doesn't exist yet. Okay, if I try to move this over, it's actually going to give me an error. Aborting the move, duplicate name detected. Okay, and also inconsistent bone counts detected. All of these are based on that 42 bone skeleton. So really, I just need to delete them and move this over. And then I could hit save, and it should save a one-player Glock gun Glock anims, but if I want to be certain, I can go save as, and I can manually name this. Okay, so I can call this 1p gun Glock anims, okay, which is the same name as I've got here, one player gun Glock anims. Okay, I just hit save, and this gives me one sequence. Okay, now this actually has that animation on it, so when your programmer goes to play unequip, or play the equip animation, he'll have some code that basically says something like, okay, play the play equip on the arms, and he might have a flag on there to say if the unequip animation doesn't equal nothing, which means as long as there is an equip animation, play it. And he might say that for every animation. You say, okay, as long as this animation exists, play it. If not, don't do anything. Okay, and then he might just use that same code. I'm not exactly sure how that's all set up. I'm not the programmer. Okay, I do have an understanding of how it works. And he might say, okay, whatever animation you play on the arms, if that animation exists on the gun, play it on the gun too. And that part of the reason why the animations, you want to have consistent naming, because this is exactly the same name, 1p_equip. Okay, it's the same name as the ARMS version. Okay, the file name is different, but the animation sequence name is exactly the same. So basically, now the programmer can say, play one player equip on the arms as long as it exists, and it'll play on the arms because it exists. And it'll say, okay, and play the same thing on the gun if it exists, and now it exists. He might say the same thing, okay, play the same thing on the run animation if there's a run animation for the gun. If run animation doesn't equal none, then play it on the gun. And in this gun, it does equal none because there is no run animation, so it doesn't do anything. Okay, it looks for that check, comes up false, and just skips right over it. Okay, so if I were to name this on accident equipip, okay, with 2 P's, it won't play. Okay, because unless the programmer specifically knows that typo's there and actually puts in his code according, to make sure he says, okay, look for the equip with 2 P's, So the name is important. And what we can do now is this is saved, and I've got it exported into the PSA. Let's just do a quick check here. We'll go back to our Glock tutorial folder, okay, and let's just double check that the animations that we have for our arms are actually still working, that we haven't broken anything, and I'm pretty sure we're okay. If I go to this guy, it'll actually load the anim set, okay. Then I just go File, Import PSA, okay, and I want the arms Glock. Just replace that, and if I hit play, you can see the run works, the sprint works, unequip works, and equip works. Okay, but you do notice that the slide is not moving with it. Okay, slide should be going with it, but it doesn't in this preview, because all I'm doing is previewing the mesh here in the socket. Okay, the slide needs to move on its own animation. So what we do is I'm going to right click my skeletal mesh from my weapon, create new anim set from mesh. Okay, I'm going to put this in the anims group, and this is going to be 1p underscore gun underscore Glock underscore anims. Okay, you might want to say Glock underscore gun or whatever. I reversed these to make sure that it's different from what I had originally done. So one player gun Glock anims. Okay. And it takes a second. Worried me a little bit there that it was going to crash. And now you can see our anims are clear. Now, if you remember from before, the slide is a moving animation. It's a translating. It's not rotating. So before I import this time, I'm going to uncheck anim rotation only, which says only right there. It was just showing on, but it's only. Uncheck that, then import my PSA, which is my gun Glock anims. Hit open. You can see I've got this equip animation, and when I go to play it, okay, the slide moves back, and it's in the same timing that his hand's going to pull the gun. The rest of the gun doesn't move at all. That's driven by the arms. Okay. Just want to drive that point home. And really we're good, so I can pretty much just save the package. And what we're gonna end up with is we're gonna have our 2 meshes, and we're gonna have our 2 anim sets, one for the arms, one for the gun. If you had a 3-player model as well, you would have 2 more anim sets, okay, for 3p character Glock anims and 3P gun Glock anims, because you also want to animate that. And also we would probably have a one player or a 3-player mesh, which wouldn't be 4,369 polygons. It would probably be more closer to 1,000 polygons. Okay, your 3-player mesh should technically be a little bit lower resolution. However, you do have the ability to take this and run Simplygon on it. You can always go you can always go somewhere over here, mesh simplification. Okay, so you can go mesh and you can go generate an LOD. Okay, you just add a new one. This would be on the 3-player version, and I'll say OK. Just hit OK. And now basically we're running Simplygon, and if you show it, there's a low-res version of it, which only has 216 polys. But I can always come here and say, okay, I want to give it a little bit better quality. I want to make sure that my animation is set to high, and then I simplify it again. And you can see I brought it to 230 polys. As I bring all these up to maintain their importance, if I just bring them all up to highest and simplify it, you should see I get 700. Okay, and that doesn't look too bad. I guess say recompute normals or something, and it kind of messes up the lighting a little bit. So sometimes you want to shift through these things. But if you need to go ahead and make your LODs, and I've also just got my quality slider. If I go 100%, it's pretty much just going to be the exact same gun. Okay, 4,369. If I look at my base mesh, it's the same thing. There's no change. So that's having 100% there is a little pointless. So maybe I want to do 75% first and hit simplify LOD. That should bring it, so 1,600 polys. And you got to remember that as an LOD, it's going from a distance. If I do auto here, you see the gun's good, the gun's good, the gun's good, the gun's good. At some point here it's going to change, and at this point I can't even tell if it's changed or not. It's so small. Okay, it actually changes right there. You can see that slight bit of highlight go away as the normals kind of changed a little bit, as it switches from 4,300 to 1,600. Okay, and if you wanted to do a little more gradual, you can go like 90, then 80, then you've got 3 LODs you can add, your base 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so you don't have to create your lower res version of the model. Simplygon is a wonderful tool for doing that. I'm not going into how to use it in this video quite at this point, because really it's just not rocket surgery. It's so easy to use that you just you don't even really need to worry about it. However, for our 1-player mesh, we don't need an LOD, because it doesn't ever get any farther away from your camera. Okay, that would just be if I want to make a copy of this and make that my 3-player mesh. And actually, let me just rename this guy. Move or rename, and I'm just going to call this 1p underscore, just for the sake of consistency. Okay, hit save. Make sure that my animations are still working on it, and they are. Okay, and we're good. So when we go to actually do reload, it'll be the same general practice as we just did there. That was a very shorthand version of switching around your constraints to move things in and out of your hands and stuff. So I'm just going to save this, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, and because we're at pretty much an hour point here. Took a little bit longer than I'd hoped. There's not a lot left to do. Reload is the most complex animation that we're going to end up doing, and it's really not going to be all that difficult, but there are some things we want to make sure that we're careful of, and that we maintain our steps. Okay, And again, we're gonna start with the idle animation, okay, which is this pose here. So I'm going to stop the video, let it encode, and when I come back, I think I will start with the reload.